Welcome, Beans Army, to another episode of the Less is More Sports podcast, the college offseason podcast where we're for the fans, by the fans. What we're talking about today,
Okay, Les, hold on a second here. I came up with it, so I think it's only fair that I should have to explain what we're talking about today.
I think you got
So,
it.
so we're gonna take the intro here and go a little bit differently with it, which means we're going into the future to talk about what we think, Les and I, respectively, will be the three most big changes to happen in college sports by the year 2030, which doesn't seem like it's that far away, but it's 2025 now. And as we've learned from the era of transfer portals and NIL and playoffs, things can move relatively quickly. And so some of these are a little bold, some of them are for fun, some of them are actually like reasonable takes. Not many, but some of them are. I know that I've got one that I think is mostly for fun, but now I'm worried it's actually going to happen. So we'll talk about that when we get there. So Les and I have come up with three items apiece of what we think the most drastic changes to the landscape of college sports will look like by the year 2030. And if you're watching this podcast in like 2031, let us know how wrong we were. That would be a lot of fun, actually. So I'm going to hand it back over to Les, and I'm going to let him present his first idea for how drastic college sports will be by the year 2030. Take it away, Les.
Well, first things first, I feel like we should have the Back to the Future theme song playing before we do each one of these takes. I feel like that'd be a great touch to the episode, but I got to get better on the sound editing. I acknowledge that.
Even if we
Uh,
had like a time machine noise, but I don't even think Apple gives us one of those.
no, well, I don't have Apple. I'm Team Android, so
Okay. Like, well, we used to be
Ryan's,
the B side
Ri-
a lot.
yeah, Ryan's giving me a hard time about that.
Tell Ryan to get. Ryan needs to get his own phone plan. Dang it.
Right, he's still under his parents. Come on now.
Get your own phone plan, Ryan. Come on. You can't defend yourself, so we're going to dunk on you.
Right, no facts. Yeah, he's not on, obviously Ryan's not on the podcast today. He had somewhere to be, so we miss Ryan as always, but until you get your own phone plan, don't be talking about mine. Till you paying those bills, don't be talking about me, Ryan.
Keep my name out your mouth.
Actually, even though like I can't slap him like Will Smith slapped Chris Rock because that would be a felony.
Keep my phone plan out your. Oh my- We're already losing track, but we're having a good time this morning.
That's what it's all about. We all got to have a good time here on the
That's
Less is
right.
More Sports podcast. But anyways, my number one future stock and shock, as Matt named this in the group chat. Um, I actually believe that one and dones in college basketball, well, actually, one and dones in any sport really, will cease to exist by year 2030. And I know the NCAA is going to fight like hell because of all the money that they're going to bring in through these big name prospects. But when you have players across college basketball like a Cooper Flag or an AJ Debانsa that's coming in next year, or we could even go in the football world. You got Ryan Williams, you have Jeremiah Smith, etc. Some of these players are going to create more of a conversation of these guys are pro ready now. Why do they even need to play in college? Just go
Right.
ahead, get them, let them go exactly where they are right now, and let them go in the pros. Not to mention, I think what a lot of things are going to happen with this is that majority of college athletics is going to adopt more of the baseball rule, where they can either go right out of high school or they have to come at least play for 3 years.
Right.
I believe that's the baseball rule. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yes, it is a baseball rule. I'm double checking it right now because I thought you might bring that up.
Yeah, so yeah, so I think most college programs, most college athletics are going to adopt the baseball rule where some of these players are going to be allowed to go pro right out of high school, but if they don't, they do have to stay for at least 3 years. And I think that's going to be a growing and growing conversation because with the likes of Cooper Flag, with AJ Dabanso, with Ryan Williams, with Jeremiah Smith, athletes are getting better and better and more talented by the year. And some of these guys are pro ready now. So why should they have to subject themselves to go playing in college where, they could potentially get hurt, risk their, pro stock because the pro game is the end game for a lot of these prospects and they know this going in. So why should they have to subject themselves to coming and playing in college when they're already pro ready right now? We saw what Cooper Flag did against the Team USA team. AJ Dabansa is by many one of the more talented prospects in the last several years as far as a pure scorer. Ryan Williams was already one of the top receivers in college football last year, and he technically should have been a senior in high school. Jeremiah Smith is arguably the best player in college football, and he was a freshman last year. Some of these guys just need to be able to go pro now. And I feel like by 2030, a decision's going to have to be made here. So that's why I believe that one and dones, or whatever you want to call them across the other collegiate sport landscape, are going to cease to exist by year 2030.
I have something similar to what Les has said, and I think that's actually a really good point that Les has made right now. So I'm going to actually flip flop one of my points so we can kind of back play off one another here, which is my first prediction for 2030 is that, at least in the case of men's college basketball, and you remember, for those of you who have been here a very long, long time, like the second episode I think you and I ever did together was that International World Ball, like based on that French Montana lyric. I remember that much, where we talked about how like the Europeans have taken over the NBA and all that stuff. International Players Ball, that's what it was. And we talked about that. And I'm going to predict the same thing by 2030 for college basketball, men's and women's, especially because of what you brought up. NIL has really changed the game. And like now, if you're a kid in Serbia or if you're a kid in Sudan or anywhere really, you can come over to the United States if you're good enough. Go to a very big school and make some money, and also work on your draft stocks. That way, people know what you're capable of instead of just getting like being like Nikola Jokic and getting drafted during a Taco Bell ad and panning out. And I mean, we've already seen it kind of happening this year, like Les's name implies on his username, Casper Siakam Jonas. Illinois is having a bit of a rough patch right now, but he's going to lead them to the tournament. We had the Ivisic brothers, of course, at Illinois and Kentucky, respectively. Igor Demin, of course, at BYU, and probably Les's favorite international player, Kaman Maluka from
Common Malawach.
Maluach.
That's
Huh.
how that's pronounced, yes.
They called him Maluka at the Olympics, and I was like, "That's got to be right." Then I guess the Olympics
No,
was
it's not.
wrong.
It's Common Malawach. Or if it's easier, you can call him Man Man.
I like that nickname, honestly.
No, man, I'll do Man Man. If you watch any of Duke's social media, Man Man's a whole vibe. Like he has just such a great, colorful personality on him. He's studying like videography and photography at Duke, and he's always walking around with a camera and stuff, and he's always getting people on the
Oh,
Man Man cam, and it's just so much. He is just such a likable guy, and
he's
shout out to Man Man. If you ever hear this episode, shout out to Man Man.
hell of a player too. I mean, I remember. I think my
Absolutely.
introduction to him was like blocking LeBron in the Olympic prelims, and it's like, okay, that guy. Duke's already got Cooper Flag. Why are they doing this to us? And it was like, okay, that guy's going to get drafted pretty highly. But yeah, there are a lot of international players already making big impact in college basketball, and even our local teams, a couple of them. With next year, Louisville's got Sonata Frew coming in from Germany, Indiana at this point, and like I said, it's like I told my dad at this point, like if you're committed to Indiana, it means you're coming for the money or for the regime change. In Harun Zerno from Bosnia, he's going to be interesting. So there's already a lot of foreign influence in the league, and I think it's only going to get more impressive. I'm really honestly thinking we're going to get to the point where there's like a Luka Doncic of college basketball, like or a Nikola Jokic or a Giannis Antetokounmpo, of like one international guy who just comes in and dominates the college basketball landscape. And this could be men's or women's, I'd like to say again. So I think it's going to be interesting now with NIL, now with the chance to prove that you can play against players from the United States. Even if they're not highly ranked, even if Les's one and done thing does come true, you're still going to be going against some guys who have probably played basketball since they were like 6 years old, who have a lot of experience just like you do, which is always interesting to see. Even if they're not professional, these are guys more your age that you're competing against. So I think by the year 2030, there are going to be Luka Doncic level international superstars in college basketball, and that's my first big bold prediction, drawn here by the money and the chance to pursue a national championship, just in the same way some people pursue an NBA championship when they emigrate over to the NBA. So that's my first prediction.
Before I get into my second prediction, I do want to add to your prediction by simply saying that I'm seeing a lot of NBA mock drafts, and I'm noticing that Igor Dimin is slipping in those mock drafts. But I understand that, the numbers have kind of taken a hit in recent weeks, and, very understandably so. A lot of freshmen experience like that freshman wall.
The slump, yeah.
Absolutely. But I one of the biggest things I've always understood about, why players are drafted is not the numbers that they put up, but how easily their game translates to the next level. So that being said, I don't understand why Dimon is slipping as much as he is because when I look at how this dude plays, his game is tailor-made for the professional game. Like especially with how he is mastering the pick and roll. Like dude's a surgeon in the pick and roll. And when I think he gets to the next level, he's going to really flourish and he's gonna, his numbers are gonna be, more inflated than they are at BYU, and because there is gonna be a bigger court, it is gonna be more spacing, and it is a higher emphasis on pick and roll offense. So I think Demon still deserves to be a top 10 pick, regardless of what the numbers he's putting up right now.
I would agree. BYU is also one of those teams where I think the buzz around them is actually going to go up as we approach the big time tournaments in March. They've kind of struggled, but they've got some really nice wins, including just absolutely eviscerating Kansas to the point where now Bill Self is coming to Indiana to hide the pain, if you believe the message board. So I think BYU is going to get even better. They had a lot of growing pains and a lot of, well, when Mark Pope leaves, obviously, and we've seen what he's capable of at Kentucky when they're not totally injured, which they are right now, especially a point guard. But we've seen what he's capable of, and he took a lot of the cupboard with him. And they add in Demon, they add in Canyon Catchings, they add in a bunch of new pieces, and now they're starting finally to fit together, and they're looking as talented as I thought they could be. And I think that's only going to elevate him more and more as we approach the big time tournament, and not just that, the Big 12 as well. So yeah, I would agree 100% with that.
Yeah, so I think it's officially time for me to get in my number two, and I want you all to hear me out while I say this one. For my number two, I think conferences are going to go back to semi-normal, and what I mean by that. And what made me kind of think of this is that every time I watch an ACC game, which I'm a Duke fan, so I watch a lot of ACC games. Every time I watch a game that involves like Cal or Stanford, they always bring up the fact of how many miles they're traveling between each games. And I think eventually that's going to get to a breaking point to where the NCAA is still going to keep the mega conference model that they are now, but they're going to keep the mega conference model and break it down by time zone. So what I think it's going to be a closer model to what we kind of grew up in, but they're going to handpick the best teams from each time zone, and then that's what's going to make the mega conference model, if that makes any sense at all.
Kind of, yeah.
I think by 2030 there will be so many television deals to where like each team will be able to profit off different television deals just given the time zones that they're in. I mean, there's
Right.
already a lot. Obviously, there's already a lot now. There'll probably be even more by 2030.
Yeah, and that's true. But that's one of those things where what's the word I'm thinking of? Streaming. That's the word I'm thinking of. Is going to play a really big role too because I saw, and this isn't about college, but I've seen where Netflix is trying to pry away a Sunday afternoon package from either CBS or Fox to broadcast the NFL games. And there are so many things. You've got ESPN Plus, you've got Fubo, you've got like even things like Pluto TV and Peacock, for example, now has Big East games. I didn't even know they had Big East games
Yes.
until like I saw Tom Crean get a Coke spilled on him. God bless Tom Crean. I love you so much. If you're watching this, Tom Crean, I still love you. But yeah, I think, and we've got games on the CW now, for God's sake. So I think that's going to play a big role too. But I would honestly think that there's one move I'm waiting on to see whether or not that actually happens, Les, and that would be what is the suddenly resurgent because they haven't done anything in a while. The new Pac-12. What are they going to do? Because let me tell you something. If they find a way to pry away like Memphis and Tulane and some Texas school, take your choice of like the non already Big 12 or SEC Texas schools, Texas State, Abilene State, anybody. If they can pull that off and create like another somewhat important basketball conference with football on the side, that's going to be an interesting to see how they work that out. Because Memphis is nowhere near Gonzaga. Would I sit there and watch that matchup every year? Oh hell yeah! But it's nowhere near Gonzaga, so I'm curious to see how the Pac-12 will affect that, and see like if because of the way they got done raw during this first round of expansion, if they'll hold off on being like, yeah, you know what? We can do the time zone thing later and create the super conferences later, and I'll get to that, I promise. But I'm interested to see what the Pac-12 becomes in the next couple years because I still need that football eligible member to be a full-fledged conference again. So I'm curious to see what they're going to end up doing.
Fair enough. Now you're getting into your number two?
Oh, I can? Okay, I didn't know if you had anything else to add.
No.
My number two is also going to come from the management standpoint of college basketball or college athletics. And that's what I think, and we've already kind of seen this already with Bill Belichick and what he's doing in North Carolina. We are going to see now that we have NIL and now that we have the ability to go out and get guys in the transfer portal, we are going to have GMs for college programs. And I'm not just talking about basketball and football. I'm talking about any sport where you're playing in a team element. You're going to have a GM, someone who watches the NIL money, someone who goes out and scouts for the perfect fit for your team. And that's going to affect college coaching going forward, too, because we always say when we're talking about Black Monday in the NFL, he's going to want his guy as the GM, or he's going to want to hire his own coach. And I think that's going to become more and more prevalent the more and more the money gets involved in the game, and the more and more because if there's anything we've seen this year, especially with Kansas and IU, is that you can go out and acquire all the talent in the world and look like you're going to win your conference, but it's all about the fit. And the more and more people are going to put money into NIL facilities, into programs, they're going to want a more impactful return on their money. Because the donors at Indiana and the donors at Kansas probably aren't happy their teams are middling and getting blown out by BYU and UCLA right now, even with the promise of a new coach coming. And I think that when you add a GM into that situation, you're saying I'm getting a guy who knows the sport, but who we can hold accountable, other than the coach, if things go wrong. And I think that's going to become more and more prevalent. Like I said, Belichick's already kind of hinting at this. There were rumors going around when the Mike Woodson resignation came out that Mark Cuban had left the Mavericks to come back and do this at Indiana. And it really wasn't a terrible idea. I honestly think the more we go along, the more we're going to have general managers in college football, in men's college basketball, in women's college basketball, in baseball, even if that's possible, to make sure when you've got these donors investing in your program that there is someone they can hold accountable who's not just the X's and O's guy to make sure that their fits are perfect and their team is going to operate at the most successful level. This isn't just like the NFL where you're only ruled by one guy, the owner. This isn't just solo Jim Irsay. This is the guy who owns this company and the guy who owns Eli Lilly and the dude who gives you money who has the law firm in town. This is a pool of money for a lot of investors. So I think GMs are going to become a much bigger thing in college sports by 2030, if not sooner. And I think they're going to be more accountable than head coaches in a lot of cases.
And this is one of the many ways that Duke is already ahead of the game. Shout out to Rachel Baker. I don't know why that struggled so hard to get that out, but shout out to Rachel Baker, who is the general manager of the Duke basketball team, who was brought in from Nike, and she is doing a terrific job. So one of the many ways that Duke is already ahead of the game. I had to throw that out there.
I know. Uh, but yeah, I think it's just like I said, the more we see the money going thrown around and the more players are becoming available, it's probably going to end up like that. And that's fine with me. So what's your third big takeaway?
My third big takeaway is that coaching across collegiate sports will be dominated by former iconic players. And before we have any smartasses in the comment section, yes, I know that majority of coaches were players, but those aren't the type of players that I'm talking about. Um, Honestly, we look at Coach Prime at Colorado, and not only him, obviously being Deion Sanders, one of the best football players that's ever lived, but then you look at his staff, and you got Warren Sapp, one of the best defensive tackles who's ever lived. You have Marshall Faulk, a Hall of Fame running back. And now you look at Michael Vick coaching at Norfolk State. I think that coaching is going to become dominated by like the iconic players that a lot of us grew up watching. The players, not the players that you necessarily couldn't pan out at the NFL at the professional level, or the players that, had a good, not great college game, but I mean the guys that we really grew up watching that, that if you collect any of their memorabilia, it goes for a lot of money type of players. I think Coach Prime really started a trend to made it popular for a lot of these big name players to want to come back and like give back to the game that gave them so much. So that was my third big way is that I think coaching is going to be dominated by iconic players by 2030.
It's weird you bring that up though, Les, because college football is kind of going through that now. And I mean, Michael Vick got hired at Norfolk State, I believe it
Yes.
was. Deshaun Jackson's a coach now
Mhm.
somewhere. My apologies, I can't remember off the top of my head. But it's amazing to me. College basketball went through this a few years ago with the Patrick Ewing hire and the Mike Woodson hire. And Chris Mullen was coaching St. John's for a hot second. Uh, those did not work out very well.
And just to not to cut you off, but Deshaun Jackson is at Delaware State.
Thank you, Les. I appreciate you telling me that because I couldn't. I knew it was some state, but I kept thinking it was not Norfolk. I kept thinking he was the head coach at Grambling. I'm like, no, Grambling, I think would hire somebody else. But it's amazing to me that like the one like former player hire that really worked out in college basketball so far has been Penny Hardaway, and even he's had like a couple of what is Penny Hardaway doing moments at Memphis. But Coach Deion Sanders comes into Colorado where he has no culture. Well, no, he's not part of their football culture. He went to Florida State and played for Dallas. That's as close as he got, or San Francisco. I actually don't know which is closer. But he comes in, he does all this stuff too, and it's interesting. And he comes in and turns it around, wins. They've got a Heisman Trophy winner. They haven't made like a playoff yet. They probably will eventually. But it's interesting, like those alumni hires didn't work in college basketball the way you would think. But Deion Sanders getting hired at Colorado does. So I think it would be more of a football thing because Mark Pope, I forgot about him too. In college basketball, those alumni hires have been kind of wishy washy, whether it be Kenny Payne, whether it be a Mike Woodson, whether it be Patrick Ewing, who I think was probably almost as bad as both. It's interesting. I'm intrigued by that juxtaposition of like former NFL Hall of Famer comes into a school he has no ties to, automatically wins. Alumni in basketball falls flat on their face most of the time or doesn't live up to the expectation. It's fascinating for me to see that. And back way back, and I keep talking about Indiana because I remember Indiana's coaching search. Way back before the Signetti hire, the number one candidate in a lot of people's minds was Antoine Randall, who wasn't exactly a greatest of all time level player, but had a very long, fulfilling career with the Steelers, especially. So I think you've got that has legs too because, like we talked about forever, when you've got money and you've got donors, you're going to want to make a splashy hire. When you see your neighbor pulling up in a Bugatti, you want your own sports car to try and top that up. So even if you're winning, you're looking around like, okay, Deion Sanders is a Colorado. Colorado's good. Who do I need to get? What former play is available? I'm going to get Dwight Freeney to coach the University of uh,
Syracuse.
Syracuse. Yeah, he went to Syracuse. Or he can go to the Big 12 too. He can coach random Big 12 school.
Or
Oklahoma
Robert
State.
Robert Mathis coaches Alabama A&M.
Now that would actually be kind of neat. But either way, I think we're going to see a lot more of that, like you said too, just because people are going to want to have an impact on like the college recruiting landscape when it comes to football. Because it's like we've said now that, and it's a dirty little secret, and it's bashing the SEC, and I don't care. But now that everybody can get played, and you're not doing it underpaid, and you're not doing it under the table anymore, playing field's a little more level. Coaching is going to be the next front. Where are you going to get the flashiest coach who's going to make the most impact in your football program? I think is where we're heading next.
And what's ironic about this is a couple weeks ago we did a show about the coaches on the hottest hot seat right now, and one of the coaches we talked about was Hubert Davis in North Carolina.
Yep,
If you're reading the message boards from North Carolina fans, one
it's
of the
too late.
big do what?
I said if you said if you're reading this, I went it's too late.
Oh, you had to quote a Drake album, didn't you?
I'm going to quote a Kendrick album. Don't worry.
Okay, I was gonna say it's not a very popular topic to quote Drake right
We
now.
are an equal opportunity rap reference
Next thing I
podcast.
know, next thing you know, Matt's gonna start singing some sexy songs for me.
The
Now
Humpty
that's a play.
Dance is your chance.
That's if nobody knows what I'm talking about, that is a play off of Drake's newest album with Party Next Door. If anybody knows.
Oh, I didn't even know he did a new album. I was just going to start rapping the Humpty Dance.
But
Do
no,
the Humpty.
if you read the message boards, a very popular higher idea across the North Carolina fan base right now is Sean May. Of course, a very good player and was a very good player during his time in North Carolina, which I think would be pretty interesting because just given everything I know about Coach May as a coach, I think he'd do a good job.
They should get Vince Carter.
Now that would be a PR masterclass right there.
It would be kind of funny to just watch Vince Carter do that. He'd probably just get up and dunk on somebody. He'd see that guy from Syracuse, Stanford, the French kid, and be like, "A French guy, I gotta go dunk on him."
Maxime Renaud is going to be the next Frederick Weiss.
He's just gonna be standing there like, "Wait, why is the coach? Oh no! Boom!" It's
Imagine
all over.
he calls a timeout and he goes, "No, this is how it's done." Just grabs the ball and just posters somebody.
Rips off his suit, reveals like he's wearing the USA jersey. It's like wrestling. Oh, by God, that's Vince Carter's music.
If
He's
there
ripping
was
off the jersey.
if there was ever an NBA player banned in a country, it's Vince Carter banned from France.
He's just like a Vince Carter. No, hell.
Just to add a little razzle dazzle, he puts his elbow on the rim on top of that.
That would. We gotta quit talking about this because I'm gonna want it so hard now.
Whoa, pause there, buddy.
I know. Phrasing, Archer. That's what she said. Whatever. I know. Should I do my third thing or not? I
Yes,
mean,
you should. You should.
I'm going to do my third thing now, which is the silly prediction we have. Because Les kind of hinted at something that I was thinking about earlier, um, which is the idea. I can't believe
I
I
got
said.
Matt all out of whack
I
now.
can't believe I said that. Number one, which is the idea of the super conference happening. And if that were to happen, what I honestly think is going to happen is we're going to have a quote unquote 32 team. Oh, I angered Bean now.
Yeah,
We're
you
going to have
got Bean's attention
we're
now.
going to have a 32 team college football playoff. And it's not going to be 32 random teams. It's going to be, like I've always said with football, you're just going to have like four conferences. It's in like 8 teams each. They're all going to play each other. You get the final four from the champion of each conference. They play each other. Winner of that game is the national champion. There's no randomness to it, but these conferences, the SEC, the Big Ten, are already pushing for more expansion and automatic berths in the college football playoff. And because they want all their babies. See, that was a Kendrick reference.
Oh, there we go.
See, I told you I'd even it out. They
There
need
you
all
go.
their
I'm
babies.
proud of you. I'm proud of you.
They need all their babies in the college football playoff to squabble up. So they gotta.
There we go. There we go.
I'm getting good at this. So they're gonna want as many of their teams in there as they want, and by default, there may be four big conferences. There may just be two divided in half, like Les said, kind of like an AFC, kind of like a Big Ten West and a Big Ten East or something, or an SEC West and an SEC East, something like that. And then we're going to have a playoff from there. They're going to play off. And then at the end of the day, there's one champion of 32 teams from like the biggest conference or something. Because I just think that's what they're going to end up doing because the money is there. The TV deals are there. We're already seeing like ESPN kind of gave some freebies to TNT to make up for killing basketball and whatnot. And ESPN already announced that they're not going to have baseball come back after the end of this season. Their deal with baseball is dunzo, MLB. So they're going to want even more programming so they can hype up the conferences, talk about this and that, and have a good old time. So I really do think by the year 2030, we're going to have a 32-team mega conference college football playoff. And Fox will probably get some games too because they own the Big Ten, basically. And that's going to be really fun to see how that shapes out, see what the conferences look like that participate in this 32-team tournament, and so on and so forth, because that's going to be the only way some people are satisfied with having a true national champion and lining their pockets at the same time.
Fair enough. I was waiting for more rap references, but you know what? I think it's a solid point.
They're going to bring out all of the stars for the college football playoff.
And just have all of the lights.
Yep.
That's a Actually, I probably shouldn't even quote that song just because of the artist in that song. He's if there's anybody that's down bad worse than Drake and it comes in the public eye, it's Kanye West.
Oh yeah. Well, Diddy.
Diddy, oh yeah, Diddy.
Man, it's bad that there's like three people we could have easily said that about right now. We grew up listening to and be like, yeah, music, and now it's like, oh no, Diddy's lawyer quit on him because he did something really bad. What's Kanye doing? Oh my God, Indiana pulled their uniforms due to association with him. What's Drake do? At least Drake just got dunked on
Yeah.
really badly. He
Yeah,
got
there's
this
there's
part.
nothing like I mean, I know there's some popular speculation, but there's nothing like proven that he did
Yeah,
anything like really messed up. But like he's just the only thing that's been proven so far is that he got absolutely dunked on by Kendrick Lamar.
and
When
Kendrick.
which reminds me, when Drake said "Pipsqueak pipe down" in that push-ups diss track, Kendrick took that personally.
He did. And then not only did he take him out, he gave us the greatest meme of the year so far with that "Say Drake,"
Say Drake.
the demonic smile, like, oh, he's about to end this man's whole career.
That was perfect though.
That was a really
The
good one.
camera caught it at the perfect time too.
They did credit to whoever did that. That was just like the ultimate like smirk of like.
Oh, there's already like merch being sold on that, and I bet it's being sold through the roof.
I bet so because that, like I said, that's the meme of the year to me so far. It's just him going, "Say Drake," giving him that like demonic child smile, like, yeah, I'm just gonna typically eviscerate you here. No, that was a fun halftime show. I really enjoyed that. But yeah, so I don't know who will be doing the Super Bowl halftime show in 2030, but it's probably someone we don't even know yet.
Yeah, probably somebody that just, isn't even thinking about making music right now.
No, probably not. Or Justin Bieber. You can't stop him. He's always going to come back.
Yeah, we can't stop the Bieber fever.
No, he's still our baby.
Oh,
We kind of quit with the baby references, but I mean that's probably his most famous song. So
there's just so many pause moments on this episode. I'm not gonna lie.
there are going to be some really good sound bites for whoever decides to watch this.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, "Whoa, hey, yo, pause,
Hey,
hey, yo,
no, I'm just thinking about that dude. Who's responsible for this? Byron.
Byron, beans, rice, Jesus Christ, and Byron. Who? Byron."
That was like the greatest moment of 2023, was it?
I don't remember, but that whole skit was just gold. Where he's like, "What do you want to tell Joe Byron right now? Sup, baby? Take me out to dinner."
I wouldn't mind that. Going out to dinner, going getting your dinner paid for when you like turn a certain age is just like its own reward.
I know, right?
It's like I wish someone would do that. I know Bean wishes that you would do that for him right now. Give him some wet food or something.
Like he's ever paid for food in his life.
You never know. He does his emotional labor on the podcast.
I mean, his personality at times does carry the podcast. He probably just wants his compensation, his NIL
Right now
money.
he's headless. Oh my god. Ah, okay, it's back. Oh, it's
And
gone
he's
again.
gone.
Oh,
And it's
the,
back. And it's
the
gone.
headless
And it's
bean.
back. The
Oh my.
headless bean man.
That's what he should be for Halloween. You need to give him like the Ichabod, like the creepy cape and all that stuff. The headless bean. He's come to destroy your village.
There's some times where I feel like my dog is really smart, and other times I think he's dumber than a box of rocks. I love you either way, but it's the truth. And I feel like if I gave him a costume where his head is missing, I feel like he would just be running around in circles trying to find
Oh,
himself.
he would be. He would be. But I like how you reassured him too immediately after saying that. Like, I love you either way, even if you are a dumbass. I still love you. And now look at him. Now he's like, yes, I know you do. I am in charge of the podcast.
It is
Nobody.
my it is my condo. You just pay the bills. It's all part of my master plan for world domination.
I am the propaganda machine they told you to fear.
I am Emperor Bean, and I am back. I
I like
never
how
left, but I'm back.
his tongue is like approving of this too. He's like, yeah, I'm licking you because you hear him. He's right.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So
We got about a couple minutes to spare before the end of the show. I do want to say that, Matt, I have some good and bad news on your end.
what's that?
So the good news is that we're going to have less to talk about during our spring games episode because more teams are opting out of a spring game.
Hooray! Because I don't even know what those are usually.
That might, since if we had more time, that would be something we could get into, but I think it might just have to be something for the fans to answer and the social media polls after the show. But are you all in favor of teams skipping out on the spring game, of a spring game? Yes or no? Now, here's the bad news. Is because if you follow any of the card breaks on the Less is More Sports YouTube channel, you'll know that I've built quite this card collection. And in recent weeks, I've built quite the Texas collection on top of that. I got like a Tavondre Sweat autograph card, got, I got a couple of Jatavion Sander cards, got Jay Witt, got a couple Quinn Ewerses. But the one card that I missed out on is going to make Matt so sad.
Oh no.
I got outbid on a Matthew Golden card.
No. That would have been like the ultimate thing. I would have made you had that in the background of every podcast.
Now that is I got to give Matt a ton of credit here because it's not often that Matt stumps me on my own team, but like he definitely stumped me because he predicted Matthew Golden to be our best receiver this year. I was bigger on Isaiah Bond, but Matt was really big on Matthew Golden, and from
Sometimes
start
I
to
hit.
finish, do what?
Sometimes I do hit on
Sometimes
one.
you do hit, but it's very seldom it comes at the expense of one of my teams.
I know,
But
I
that's
know.
to be expected. I mean, that'd be like if I stumped you on IU knowledge.
Which you probably could if you went down the depth chart far enough.
Now I could talk about how they were as a recruit. But anyways, we got about a minute left, so I'm going to throw this in there before we end on our patented podcast rant. As always, like and subscribe to the Less is More Sports YouTube and Spotify channel to get the latest updates of content we got coming out soon. Be sure to follow our social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, and Threads. That's at Less is More Sports. Also, be sure to follow the side quests on TikTok. That's at BeansDad018. Also, if you haven't, go ahead and check out the new retrospect series where we talk about the 2002 Boise State Broncos and the team that started the disastrous Darlings mantra. But anyways, as we were saying, Matthew,
IU, don't hire somebody old, please. Hire a
they're
young
gonna
guy.